What happened was when I walked in and I realized that all the videos that I saw were true, I couldn't in good faith leave anyone behind. There was no way that I was walking out without a beagle baby.
As a vegan, do you ever feel like you're living in a parallel universe, aware of things that many others don't even seem to notice, let alone acknowledge? I'm Chrissy Benson, host of the Vegan Posse podcast. We talk with vegans from around the globe who, like you, are living lives of integrity and compassion with an eye toward justice. Through their personal stories, you'll come to see that you're not an outlier. In fact, you're part of an entire posse of individuals who aren't just keeping the peace, they're creating it through their food choices and beyond. You won't be saddling up, but you're in for the ride of your life. Welcome to the Vegan Posse. Hey Posse, I'm Chrissy Benson, host of the Vegan Posse, bringing vegans together to help animals everywhere. I've got an exciting announcement. Starting in April, we will be launching Posse Time, a group to educate, cheerlead, and support you on your vegan path. It's a time for us all to come together, ask questions of me and or the group regarding nutrition and vegan living and anything else on your mind. I am a certified vegan lifestyle coach and educator, a World Peace Diet facilitator, and a clinical mental health counselor, and supporting vegans or vegan-leaning people on their path is simply in my blood. I'll be letting you know all the details soon, so stay tuned or email veganposse.email@gmail.com for more information. On the other hand, if you're seeking individual one-on-one coaching, contact me personally at christinembenson@gmail.com. I am here to help. Next, if you haven't yet picked up a copy of the vegan women's fiction classic, Marrying Myself, by me, Christine Melanie Benson, now is the time. It features a vegan protagonist, and by making Marrying Myself an international bestseller, together we can normalize veganism through the arts. So let's do it. Grab a copy on Amazon or through my website, christinemelaniebenson.com. And now for this week's episode. On March 15th, 2026, a coalition of activists rescued 22 beagle puppies from Ridglan Farms, a notorious beagle factory farm near Madison, Wisconsin, that breeds beagle dogs to sell to laboratories for a lifetime of experimentation. I got to talk to activist Amanda Olejarz, one of the courageous humans who walked into that facility and came out holding a sweet beagle puppy. As you'll hear, Amanda's also got a fascinating and inspiring personal story, which you'll get to hear in addition to her account of the Ridglan rescue. So enjoy this conversation with Amanda Olejarz.
It had been raining all night. It was freezing. When we walked across the road and got to the field, it had started to thunder and lightning, and there was one bolt that it literally shook the ground. And I remember looking up thinking, this is either going to end so well or this is going to be a complete poop show doing anything. The only reason I was able to do my job and save Darling the Beagle was because I saw all the flowers from the yellow and the green teams out there. So just because you don't walk in because of XYZ reason, it does not mean that you're not valuable. Because the biggest thing walking up the hill, when you see all of those people that are supporting the mission and you realize that you're not alone, you can do anything, including save lives. Animals do have voices. I heard it. It haunts me. They cannot physically speak English, but they do communicate with us. They do show consent. And when that consent is being ignored time and time again, somebody needs to step up and do the right thing. And if somebody's not going to do it for themselves, that's one thing. But as soon as you start to do it to somebody who cannot do it as I can for them, that's where my real passion comes in. Because, yeah, I want you to have the best body possible. I really do. And I will support you with that. but I'm not going to force that on you. I will force you off of an animal, though. That is something I will do.
Amanda, welcome to the Vegan Posse. Are you ready for the ride of your life?
Yes, get excited. Let's go.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you've got a really interesting story. You got the vegan concept at a very early age. Tell us how that happened.
Well, essentially, I never liked the taste or texture of any kind of animals, but I was traumatized by my father walking down the stairs telling me that I was eating flounder from The Little Mermaid, which was my favorite movie at the time. And it was as I was eating a fish stick, so I didn't correlate the fact that the fish stick was processed fish. My parents told me it was just a name, but then I looked at my mother and she looked at my father and then said, all sorts of things. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's true. So I never have eaten animals. I don't like it. And yeah, I wish more people got on the board with that.
Wow. And I mean, how did that work as a kid and going to school and living in your parents' home?
It was terrible. That's where a lot of my anger issues and my trauma comes from because I was force fed to eat them day after day for years. So,
So you were forced to eat them, not willingly, but you did. You had to.
mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
sometimes my nose was held and my mouth was open, and then they would chew for me.
You
There
are
was
kidding me.
one time where and this is nothing against my parents, they were doing what they thought was best. And, you have somebody as awkward as me putting up such a fight that you don't understand. I can only imagine what it was like for them too. But there was this one time that my father and I went camping as part of a father daughter experience, and they had a pig roast there. And everybody thought it would be funny if Amanda, the one who doesn't eat animals, would kiss the dead pig. So I essentially was bullied by everybody on that camping trip, including my father, to do it. And my negotiation was fine, but take a picture so that nobody can call me a liar and say that I didn't do it. And unfortunately, the picture came out all blurry. So the only thing I have is the fact that I actually did it, but it was one of the worst things ever. I kissed a dead pig's nose just to make other people happy.
Wow. Wow. How old were you at that time?
Oh, this was probably around middle school.
Okay. Wow. So that's like the most vulnerable time in terms of public impressions and yeah, trying to fit in. Wow. That is wild. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a younger sister, yes. Um,
And
we're not
and was
close.
she okay, okay. So she had no problem eating animal flesh or any of those so-called
Mm-mm.
foods. Okay.
No, it was just me. I'm the weird one out of my entire family. There was always a disclaimer. Amanda's coming. Make sure you have something she can eat, like lettuce or carrots or bread. I used to eat a
Wow.
lot of cheese and bread as a kid.
So interesting. Yeah, so you hadn't learned of course about what about dairy, about the dairy industry.
No, everyone told me that I looked up to that I did not correlate for so long that they were still lying to me that because it wasn't uh, the actual animal part, it was okay.
Uh-huh.
And I'm really ashamed slash embarrassed to admit it took me way too long to realize that milk was for babies and not for me. But as soon as that clicked, it was like, holy cow, I can never eat cheese or anything like that again. I'm an adult and I ought to act like it.
It's so interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people listening and myself too, I mean, can relate to just the ignorance. And it's in hindsight, it's so amazing to me that it never connected for me that yes, cow's milk is the breast milk of another species and it's produced when a mother has a baby and at the very least it's just weird for humans to be drinking the breast milk of another species. And of course, I talk about this a lot, but just our society, which purports to venerate the concept of motherhood. And there's nothing as sacred, any spiritual tradition, including Christianity, there's nothing more sacred than that mother child relationship. And here we have a whole industry that's premised on the utter abomination of that relationship. It's wild. And it is amazing how much is hidden from us. It's in plain sight, and yet we don't see it. Yeah. So did anyone ever mention to you as a kid growing up that there were people, that are people, even whole cultures who don't eat animals?
No, ma'am. And I'm
No.
not sure if it's because they didn't know or if they didn't want me to know.
Sure.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like I always knew that there were vegans out there, but because of my ignorance when I was vegetarian for all of those years, thinking I was doing enough, it was just because I didn't do the research. And I was like, I'm just like them. I'm just not as angry forcing my stuff on you. And it wasn't until I actually looked into what vegan actually meant and realized my own ignorance and what I could evolve in that I started being like, oh, wow, I had it wrong this whole time. Whoopsie daisy. And I hate to use the R word, but the vegans, especially the activists, they had it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same way after years vegetarian, thinking that I was doing enough. Yes. And now in hindsight I just feel like what a waste. What a waste of all that time and emotional energy. So when was it that you actually discovered veganism and started officially heading in that direction?
So I went raw vegan for health in 2021, but I did not look up the definition of vegan until 2023 when I was introduced to Chicago Veg. It's a vegetarian, vegan, and raw foodist community. So I was like, cool, herbivores, I fit in. But I was talking with the founder and he was enlightening me of everything. And then when I went to Italy later that year, I realized that it's the same treatment all over the world. It's not just here in the States like I originally thought. So I became a vegan activist in 2024 after I realized that there's actually something I could do about it.
Wow, and it took that long for you to connect with other vegans. Wow, that's almost heartbreaking in so many ways that it took you so long to find your people. What about, high school, college, just young adulthood? No, no fellows, no people who were remotely on the same page?
Everyone I feel like was vegan at heart until I brought up food. And being a massage therapist, I've worked on thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And you'd think that I would run into a vegan by now, but the only vegans that I've ever massaged that have come into my clinic that have at least been vocal about it are my fellow vegan activists that I have
Mm,
massaged. So
mhm,
it has
mhm,
been really hard because in a professional matter, I can't, with my massage license, I'm only allowed to legally say so many things. As a
mhm,
coach, I can say different things, but I have to separate the two.
mhm,
So, knowing what I know, having the experiences of what I know, and just really knowing that whole food, raw food is the key to life and consuming exploitation in more than just mouth taste pleasure in more than one, especially the spiritual way, knowing all that, I don't know, I feel like it's game changing.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. I'm not raw, although I do eat high raw. Um, but yeah, first tell us about how you got into massage. Like, how did that path, end up being your path?
Well, I first wanted to be an astronaut, but my
Oh.
grandma told me I wasn't smart enough for that just after I stopped eating animals as a kid. So then I brought up to my parents that I wanted to be a teacher, and they vetoed that because there wasn't enough money. I was like, fine, I don't know what else to do. Tell me. They said no. So I wound
Huh.
up taking a massage class just so I could be a full time student to to get health insurance. I
Huh.
liked it, but they said that it was a medical profession. And I'm like, that's it. The medical field is always going to be around. Let's do it. So that's how I found
Where were you at this time? Were you in Chicago? Is that where
uh,
you grew up?
Chicago suburbs. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you were in full-time school, okay, and feeling good about being in the medical profession.
Hmm.
All right. And what happened?
I mean, massage has been great. However, working an hourly commission job is not so great. And then changes in healthcare, I wound up losing two jobs in 2008 because of Obamacare. So things change behind closed doors. I wound up getting into sleep technology and learning all things sleep because apparently that's a thing as well. But
Hmm.
working behind the scenes at the hospital, I firsthand got to see and experience the not so great things with healthcare, health insurance specifically. And it was,
Oh, really?
yeah,
That's blowing my mind.
it's terrible. Like the exact same, I don't know what I call it. We're just going to say sleep apnea. The exact same sleep apnea will be different in Medicare than not Medicare. So it'll be the same severity, but will be treated differently because of what a patient has on their health care. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Hmm. Yeah, sleep apnea sure seems like a huge business these days. Yeah, do you have any insight into that? Because that is something I'm very curious about because just hear so much about it. Everybody suddenly seems to have it. What's going on?
Well, several things. Sleep is one of those things that it's one of like three things that everybody needs. So it is highly important. It is the only time that your cerebral spinal fluid is clean, which is so important at getting rid of brain fog and making sure that you're cognitively okay. But sleep, specifically REM sleep, is where you process your emotions in your dreams. So if you're feeling too emotional in your real life, like I do often, if you get good sleep, especially the last cycle of REM is right before your alarm. If you're getting enough quality sleep and hours in, you can change your brain, change your body, change your entire life. But the crazy part is me and you, we've been around for a little bit. We're no longer kids, right? Which means we don't get enough of the deep sleep that we actually need that kids get all of the time. So we can do that by meditating. Meditating is one of those things that separate the Buddhist monks' brains from regular people's brains, like mine, who don't meditate nearly as often. But it is one of those things where if you prioritize your sleep, you can change everything. And the lie that they're going to tell you is sleep apnea is forever. It is not. You can get rid of your sleep apnea. You can, quote unquote, reverse it. You don't have to be stuck with it. The main reason for sleep apnea is because there's too much restriction in your neck, either from the inside or there's too much pressure on the outside from weight. So all you really have to do is help your body become less inflamed so that the inside has enough air to flow through. And same thing with your nose. If there's any kind of like swelling or inflammation from sinuses or allergies, that'll affect how you sleep and therefore how you breathe at night. Because sleep apnea really is just a little less regular breathing while you're trying to sleep and your body's not getting enough oxygen, so it's waking you up, even if you don't actually know it.
Fascinating. Okay, very interesting. Well, I have had a daily meditation practice for decades, so that makes me feel good. And in fact, I just got back from a very intensive 10-day meditation course. That was honestly, I'd been calling it a retreat. It was really more like a boot camp. It was very, very intense. But I did notice during that course my dreaming was off the charts. I mean, I never had such vivid, intense dreams as during those 10 days. So, yeah, it was a fascinating experience. But I want to hear about you and your health journey. So, you were you were in professional massage. So you were working in a hospital, is that right?
So I was contracted out through the hospital,
Okay.
but For massage therapy, I've kind of done everything from corporate massages to working at high end spas to working in doctor's offices and medical spas to doing massage parties and home visits. But yeah, massage has brought me all over. I've even gone to some family retreats out of state where they've housed me, fed me, took me in as their own, and then paid me to do massage on the
Huh.
beach.
Huh. Yeah, not a bad gig.
Not at all.
Very nice. Yeah. So what was going on with your own health at the time? So all of this time, most of this time, you were still vegetarian, not yet vegan.
Mhm.
And how were you feeling physically, emotionally, spiritually?
Emotionally, I was a train wreck because I was still trying to fit in with my parents who were not accepting of me. I no shame against any of the people that I used to hang out with, but I was in with the wrong crowd. I was drinking every night, pretty much into oblivion for about 9 years, smoking about a pack and a half, 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was not prioritizing my sleep or my self care in the slightest. I was
Hmm.
very angry at everyone and, trying to fit in, trying to be the good girl, making sure that everybody else had everything they needed so I wouldn't get in trouble per se.
Hmm.
So I was not having fun in life in the slightest. And I wound up in a really terrible marriage. I found out what a narcissist meant after that relationship. It helps me to believe in signs and is also the reason I started to have my voice, use my voice. And when I was, vegan transitioning before like I actually started to use the V word as we all call it, like I was scared to do it, but because I walked away with my life after that failed marriage, that very, very good failed marriage, I feel like I have the strength and power to do almost anything.
Hmm. Hmm. That is, yeah, that is the benefit of those really hard experiences, and especially those really hard relationship ruptures. Is that, yeah, we do see our own strength, and it is, I see it as affirming to ourselves that we're not going to abandon ourselves. We're not going to settle for being in something that is not true to that inner voice. Yeah. Wow, that sounds really, really difficult. How long was the marriage, and how long did it take you to kind of extract yourself?
The whole marriage was only about 3 or 4 years, and I had a plan to graduate sleep school, get my life in order, be a little more financially stable, have everything set up before I left. But the events of the night that took place, I realized that my body was no longer physically safe. So my plan went out the window and I left within 12 hours and did not look back. I lost
Oh,
a
wow.
cat in a house. I had my bank accounts all closed out. I lost all of my possessions just so I could walk away alive.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So he was physically abusive, it sounds like.
Yes, and I am also a gun violence survivor.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow.
And
Wow.
unfortunately, almost like Ridglan, I was standing outside my house in Chicago in the rain while he changed the locks on the doors just before I got there, stealing all of my stuff. So when I called the police, who I thought were going to help me, they took his side because he was part of the police too. So they
Oh,
didn't
wow.
listen to me or my story. So I stood there in the rain, not being able to do anything, feeling helpless as ever.
Wow. Wow. I have a feeling just experiencing that moment gives you heightened empathy for what non-human animals experience. Is that accurate?
Very.
Hmm. So you made it out alive. Where did you go from there?
Well, I definitely went in my head because that was the first time I had ever had, I guess you'd say, a near death experience. There was
Mm,
some unthinkable things that I went through as an atheist my entire life that I could not explain. And I started looking into it, and that's when I started finding my spirituality and learning more about energy and how things work. I learned a little about chaos theory, how everything is happening in that very moment, which explains what it is that I was seeing as I was extracted from my body in that moment. And I just really started to figure out who I was and what I stood for. And because
mm,
I didn't have anything except for my car,
mm,
I moved back into my parents' house. So being back there after so long, I was like, oh no, like I'm not the same person, but they're still going to see me as a little kid.
mm. How
So
old were you at that time?
I was about 30, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I was not a little kid. At that point, I
Yeah.
had been through a lot. And,
Yeah.
I feel like when you have a house, it's a different thing. All of a sudden, you have all these new responsibilities, which is different from apartment living. And I was like, all right, they're going to see me as different now that I've been through this. But that's also when I found life coaching instead of traditional therapy. And I
Mhm,
realized that there's going to be some people, such as my biological parents, that I love, adore, and appreciate everything that they've done for. But we're just at two different stages in our spirituality and on a
mm,
soul level. So
mm,
part of my job is to help them evolve through them learning through me, and to
mm.
have the patience that I wish that they would have had with me by listening and not forcing me to do just what they wanted. So that was the biggest experience that I got living back with my parents after my divorce or during my
Amazing.
divorce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful that you kind of flipped it from feeling like a victim to, just challenging yourself to show up in the way that you wanted to show up for them and wish they'd shown up for you. Yeah, being the change that you want to see in the world,
Mhm.
as Gandhi said. Wow. So how long did that chapter go for?
Well, I actually got divorced and then on the very same day put an offer in on my condo. So I was only with them for about 7 months before I was able to get out. And since then, I feel like I've just been a completely different person because I was trying to get out of massage therapy. I wound up in a sales job, which, if you knew me before, you knew that I was scared that I wouldn't really talk too much unless I was intoxicated in some way. And then I was usually saying all the things that people wish they would have said that sometimes I regretted. So, doing sales, I had to go talk to everybody. We went business to business, talking to people on the streets, business owners, employees, customers, and that gets you out of your shell. That really just
Mm,
makes you evolve and grow. And you learned that, like, the biggest lesson I learned is that people are more scared of you than you are of them.
mm.
So knowing that, it really helped me a lot to be able to process and to talk about what it is that I had experienced instead of just lashing out like I was so used to in my life before.
This is so fascinating. Number one, what even made you want to do sales?
I wanted anything beside massage therapy. I didn't have any kind of degree, so I needed something that was entry level. And I believe that was the first one that got back to me. And I just said yes. I'm like, it's right down the street. There's a ping pong table in this office. These people are really cool. Let's give
Huh.
it a try. And then I showed up and nobody told me it was business to business sales. It was January during the polar vortex and I wasn't wearing socks and I had to go walk outside all day in the snow. I didn't talk to anybody for 2 days. That was never unheard of. They usually fire people, but they kept me for some reason. And after a year and some really good training, I worked with some of the best people, not just in the office, but the entire country. I wound up being 10 out of 10 on the top 10 of all time. I was like,
Wow.
the little shy girl that was trying to fit in is now all bold and stuff. Like, this is pretty cool.
Fascinating. What were you selling?
Ha ha! Smiles, personality, and little $20 bags of makeup.
Amazing. Seriously?
Yeah.
$20 bags of makeup?
Yes, ma'am. 22 including tax. But that helped me to realize hmm, just how much I didn't know what I was putting on my body. Because I wasn't a big makeup wearer at that point, but I
Uh-huh.
did wear it. And selling makeup, I started looking into what chemicals were, and I was like, oh no. And that got me into animal testing a little bit, which this product was not animal tested, but it was supposedly mineral makeup, which everybody says is good. It turns out mineral oil is nothing more than recycled plastic oil. So it's like putting garbage bags on your face and having it set in. So I'm like, I can't in good faith or consciously do this anymore.
Wow. And why were you so over massaged? Like, did you feel that that was just, it was your time, or was there something that happened that made you not want to do it anymore?
It was the fact that I was not helping people as much as I wanted to, that I had the same clients that I was sometimes seeing week after week for years, if not, a decade and a half at this point, who weren't getting any better. And I knew that my massage is really good. I didn't think that, like, it should be as bad. Like, their progression ought to be as intense as it was. I didn't think that I was doing enough. So I started to evolve into different things, learning energy work and subconscious reprogramming. And that's when I wound up in sleep, learning more about that. I learned sound therapy, and then I wound up in nutrition after learning foods have different vibration too. And I was like, holy cow. And then I wound up in this nutrition program because, walking is different than talking. And I was doing a whole lot of this and not a lot of this. So I found a program that aligned with everything. And then I changed and I was like, oh man, my hands can never do this. My massage will never make anybody feel as well as I do, as much as when I eat whole raw foods.
Hmm. So, yeah, tell us about your own health journey. When did I assume at some point you took a turn from the smoking, the drinking. I mean, that's not easy to do. How was that whole process for you?
I have quit nicotine several times in my life. The first time was on antidepressants, because it was a side effect of them to quit smoking, and I quit within a week. And I
Huh.
stayed off of nicotine for 3.5 years until I got my sales job, and I started smoking again so I wouldn't drink. And that was just to relieve anxiety, to get out of my own head, and to kind of get away from all the demons and the bad things that I was thinking. But long story long, the last time that I bought cigarettes or any kind of like vapey thing has been, I think, about since, was it 2025? I decided that I didn't want to smoke my vape in the church bathroom anymore, like a delinquent. So I gave it up and I haven't really looked back since.
I mean, again, not easy. Any particular tips for people who are trying to let go of that habit?
Just keep going. It stings, but literally distract yourself with anything else. And just fair disclosure, I've had about 3 full cigarettes in the last year. Each drag has tasted worse than the last. And the last one I had, there was some guy that was smoking outside when I walked out of jail after Ridglan. And I was like, oh man, I want one, this filter, everything. And I was trying so hard to let it go back. And there was a part of me that didn't want to waste it. But there's a part of me that also knew I was just doing it because I was chasing the same high that I wasn't going to get. So I let it burn. I went through some of the motions, but it
Mm.
wasn't what I want. So don't be afraid to not go back, but to put yourself in that position and say, this is no longer me, and that's
Mm.
okay.
Fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. And what about the alcohol, the drinking? Was that kind of a natural process, or where are you with that journey?
Um, Drinking, I haven't drank since Italy in 2023. That I feel
Wow.
like is just so much easier because when I was working overnights, like there's a thing called sleep drunk. People are too sleep drunk on the road, which is why there's so many accidents, especially with people with sleep apnea. It's more prevalent in drivers. But being sleep drunk to the point where you're borderline hallucinating is one of the worst things ever. And that was sober. And I did not want to do that anymore. I was so
Mm.
angry when I was drinking. I was running away from so many different things. And because I was in coaching and aware of what it is that I was doing more than I ever had been before, I felt like I didn't need that escape anymore.
Mm.
So drinking to me was so easy, and especially because it was wreaking havoc on my body. My goodness, when
Mm.
I stopped drinking, I must have lost about 15, 20 pounds in inflammation and water weight just
Mm.
because I was no longer ingesting a poison or a neurotoxin into myself. That
Mm.
in itself was enough to make sure that I don't have it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your story is just so interesting because it sounds like you've kind of done it all. You're not a prude, that's for sure. You've tried lots of different things, and so I think people can probably really appreciate hearing your version of things because it's genuine. It's gritty. It's not seamless and easy sounding. So, what about your just general health? I know you've mentioned in your story that you realized massage wasn't going to help. How did you find the food program that you found, and specifically around raw foods?
I was looking for some kind of accredited program because back in those times, I wanted to make sure that I could get a degree in something to be able to use because I was looking for a job with a piece of paper and all of that. So that's how I got into it. And I'm so grateful for it. Since I've entered it, the program itself has evolved so much. But there's some books that I have read that you can't get online, there's not on Amazon. So I'm forever grateful for all of those, especially the doctors. But yeah, it was kind of just, I found it one night as I was working. I asked my friend, I'm like, hey, can you make sure that this is accredited before I blow all my money on this? And she's like, yeah, it looks good. So I started it, and each class you can dive into separately. So I have a couple of different certifications from those deep dives because I'm like, this is the first time I'm learning it. This is fascinating. You're telling me that I can change my entire body just by changing the way that I think because I change my patterns of what it is I'm consuming. It seems so simple, but it is so profound when I was learning it. It was so mind blowing.
Wow. So, what were the changes that you saw in yourself?
Well, you know that little voice inside your head that says do stuff that you like to ignore, and you're like, no, it's not going to work. This is just one little time. That's a lie. That is the biggest lie in the world. I found that when I listen to that voice that knows better than my ego, ah, I can I'm not going to be living in as much pain or unalignment as I had been when I was trying to run away from everything. And
Mm.
that voice is like the mom, the dad, the grandma, the ancestors that I wish that I would have had that were comforting me and protecting me and not just trying to throw me in the corner or in a cage. So, my biggest thing is if you're not going to listen to that voice that has your best interest right away, then at least ask yourself why you don't want to. just so you could break out of the habit and then possibly make a better choice. Because it's really hard to get stuck in the same comfort level. I get it. I still eat cookies on my couch from time to time, but I know the second I put that one cookie down or I don't eat it entirely, I'm back on that uphill trajectory and I'm no longer in that little comfort of shame and guilt.
Wow. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. And again, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the temptation, to the voices, the different parts of ourselves, some that are more helpful than others. So, how did you start getting interested in activism on an animal, ethical level?
Well, I started off as one of those angry vegans. So if you've ever read my posts in the past, my apologies. I was acting as an angry child who was yelling at her parents, trying to get them off of her. I've come a long way since then, but essentially it's me now wanting to be angry at the world and every single non vegan out there, especially because even though I don't necessarily want to admit it, I myself was a non vegan for so long and I participated in so many things that I wish that I could have changed. So just making sure that I'm aware of that has really helped me.
So, yeah, because it's interesting. A lot of people tend to go into one of two camps, either the health focused path or the animal welfare, animal rights path. I mean, I think that's a false dichotomy because I myself am kind of doing both. But it's interesting to me that obviously you had the ethical awareness from a very early age and then got focused on health. So when did the vegan cause become something that you just realized I want to take real action to change what's happening to non-human animals?
Because human animals could care less about themselves or their bodies. So, no matter how much I was praising raw veganism, raw food, being a frugivore, not having processed food, and catering it towards the accepting everybody and meeting them where they're at and trying to be the change and show them and share my story, I realized that it's not going to work. It's just like massage therapy. I can go ahead and tell you how to stretch your body and what to do, but I'm not going to follow you around and tell you what to do or to make sure that you're doing it. So, with respect, human animals do not care enough. I really stepped into vegan activism when you see the animals that are enduring the worst, crying out because animals do have voices. I heard it, it haunts me. They cannot physically speak English, but they do communicate with us. They do show consent. And when that consent is being ignored time and time again, somebody needs to step up and do the right thing. And if somebody's not going to do it for themselves, that's one thing. But as soon as you start to do it to somebody who cannot do it as I can for them, that's where my real passion comes in. Because, yeah, I want you to have the best body possible. I really do. And I will support you with that, but I'm not going to force that on you. I will force you off of an animal, though. That is something I will do.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense to me for sure. So, what were some of the activist experiences you had delving into this realm?
Well, a huge shout out to the Animal Rights Collective of Chicago because I feel like Chicago's got some really amazing activists, but those people that go out in the ARC every single week, if not multiple times a week, in the rain, the hail, the snow, the intense heat, oh gosh, they have the passion and the dedication, and they're just like me. They're not afraid to say stuff. So being around similar like-minded people, like community really is key. So me finding that activism, that specific group of people, I feel like allows me to continue to evolve my activism. And I really learned the not just nonviolence, but the law too, which I didn't really realize I was going to do. But it's a deep rabbit hole, if you will. And without the ARC, there's no way that I would have be who I am right now, or had the guts or courage to participate in something like the Ridglan Rescue.
Yeah. So tell us about that rescue from the very beginning when you first heard about it and what was going on with these animals.
So Wayne had already done his original investigation. I want to say that was in 2017. But
So
I
for
was
people who may not be aware, you're
okay.
referring to Wayne Shung of Direct Action Everywhere. Is that
Yes,
right? Okay.
co-founder
Thank
of
you.
Direct Action Everywhere and his blog The Simple Heart are two organizations that took part in the Ridgeland Rescue. Wayne is a lawyer, specifically an animal rights lawyer, and this was, I guess, one of the first open rescues that was done during daylight. He had done some investigative journaling before, and I started to follow him. He was one of the first people. Him and Joey Carbstrong came up in my feed when I was turning from angry vegan into vegan activist. So I started to follow the trial, what was happening, but I was unable to go because I didn't want to take off of work at that time. And I believe that was 2024. And that was one of my biggest regrets. So when the opportunity presented this time around, like, hey, there's going to be an open rescue, I was like, bet if I don't do this, I'm going to regret. And if I've walked away from literally everything in my life and multiple times before, I can surely do this. So it was a no brainer for me. But
And
I
where in
tell
the
people,
country, again, for people who aren't aware, where in the country was this happening? Did this happen?
so Ridglan Farms is in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, about a half an hour southwest of Madison in Dane County.
Thank you. Yeah. So you decided, okay, you're going to do this. Did some of your friends from ARC join you, or was that before you connected with ARC?
Some of them were there. I was the only person from there on the red team. There were others on the yellow and green. And pretty much essentially the teams are just risks, right? So we all had a purpose, and this is for you watching. Just because you're not on a red team doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. The only reason I was able to do my job and save Darling the Beagle was because I saw all the flowers from the yellow and the green teams out there. So just because you don't walk in because of XYZ reason, it does not mean that you're not valuable. Because the biggest thing walking up the hill, when you see all of those people that are supporting the mission and you realize that you're not alone, you can do anything, including save lives.
That's a beautiful image, and just like my heart is leaping just at the vision of that. But let's backtrack a little bit. Tell us what you learned was happening to these animals.
It's the unthinkable. Like, the thing that got me was surgery without anesthesia.
And
There's
these are beagles.
beagles, they're known for being loving and caring. And I read the book Shiloh as a kid in grade school, and that was all about a beautiful beagle named Shiloh. And I learned just how adorable they are, how much they care. And even if you were to smack them, they're going to turn around and forget it, which is why they're used in testing, because you could do the unthinkable to them and they're not going to bite you. They're not going to lash out. They're only going to put up so much of a fight, but it's not going to really matter. So when I found out that there were dogs that were having part of their eyes cut off while being held down without anesthesia, that's torture. That's not okay. And even further, there's a veterinarian, a licensed veterinarian in the state of Wisconsin or Wisconsin state that is allowing this to happen. That's not okay, especially since I have a massage license. I am on the IDPFR. I've been fingerprinted. I've had to do so much sexual assault, harassment education because of Jeffrey Epstein. These people are not doing this one big thing that we all can agree on, whether you're vegan or not there yet, that is not okay. Anybody going through surgery, especially unnecessary surgery like the stuff that's happening at Religion, if you're doing that without proper anesthesia at the very least, that's just inhumane. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, too. When I walked in there, I thought the smell was bad on the outside, but the smell on the inside was horrible. There's literal piles of feces under each of the cage, and some of the cages were already empty, but there were still piles under there, which means that they didn't clean. And I can't even begin to fathom how long. That's unacceptable for anybody, especially an animal that doesn't have the option to leave.
So what happened?
What happened was when I walked in and I realized that all the videos that I saw were true, I couldn't in good faith leave anyone behind. There was no way that I was walking out without a beagle baby. So I walked in, the door was already open, and I remember looking down at the second row, and there was one empty cage, and then all of a sudden the lights went out, the whole power stopped, and I was like, crap, what's going to happen? Are they going to lock us all in here? Are we
Yeah,
not?
what was going on with the employees at the facility?
I,
What time of day was this, first of all?
we met up at about 7:30 on Sunday, and I'm not entirely sure what time we got there. It was probably just after 8 a.m. It was already raining. It had been raining all night. It was freezing. When we walked across the road and got to the field, it had started to thunder and lightning. And there was one bolt that it literally shook the ground. And I remember looking up thinking, this is either going to end so well or this is going to be a complete poop show. And then we walked in. I realized that what I saw was actually real because at this point in time, I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. I had only seen stories. So if the biggest joke in the world was me showing up and I get charged with all of these things and I got to see that I was just fooled, that would have been amazing. But it wasn't the case. What I saw was real, and there was no way that I could have left who I named Darling there. Um, yeah, she was in the back and she was kind of going back and forth. You can tell she was a little apprehensive of me because I was just a person or human. And I had a towel and I threw it over her and then I scooped her up and I cuddled her. And I'm just thinking, all right, just walk. Because we had booties on at this point. We had hazmat suits because XYZ germs, things like that. I just remember walk, walk, walk. And down the hill, we didn't have the booties on. So my shoes were extra slippery. And I'm like, nope, I am not going to fall. I'm just going to concentrate on making sure Darling is safe, that she is like pressed against me so she's not going to squirm out, and that I am going to stay upright and not fall. Because the day before I left, I slipped on some ice, but I didn't fall. And I tweaked my back for the first time, and I can't even tell you how long I felt pain. So I was so scared that that was going to come back. So all I could do was breathe. And then this is huge thanks to everybody that had one of these. Because against the trees that were all dark up that hill, when all you see is so many people holding these flowers up, it gives you all the faith to just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. Just like every day, I don't continually have a cigarette, or every day I choose not to have alcohol, or every day that I keep in alignment with the vegan principle or philosophy. It is a choice, just like it was my choice to take one step at a time to make sure that me and Darling made it out of there.
And where is Darling now?
I'm not sure, but I have all the faith that she is one of the beautiful beagles that I have seen pictures of, either getting a bath for the first time or being wrapped in one of the fuzzy blankets. There were a few of them that went outside in the snow and got to be on solid ground. So that in my heart is where I know Darling is, but location, I don't know.
So in the immediacy after the event, for one, how many animals did you all carry out of that facility?
We carried out about 31. 23 made it out of there, and then 8 were confiscated by the police. So we're calling them the Ridglan 8, and they need everybody's help to call the Dane County attorney, Ishmael Ozan, to tell him essentially to do his job and let the beagles out. Um, yes, girlfriend. There's still some babies that need some help. But yeah, there's 31 that came out, 8 brought back, and 23 are on their way to their forever homes.
Wow. And how were you feeling throughout all of this? Were you scared? I mean, it sounds like you were just right there in the moment, trying not to fall, trying to hold it together.
Yeah, I feel like during it was literally like something out of a movie. I couldn't believe what was happening because at one point one of the Ridgeland employees allegedly, I don't know if it was him, I was told that it was him. However, there was a man in a truck who, now the roads are super slippery. It's been raining, it's been hailing, and there was even some snow, but this truck was essentially spinning out and going up and down and like going into people that were holding the flowers and just saying like, no, stop. He intentionally ran his truck into one of the rescue vans. It was
Mm.
completely chaotic, and like this was up a hill, which made it even worse. There's ditches on either side, so there was a lot going on. I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Yeah, I was just kind of asking if you were scared, what you were feeling in the moment of all of this.
I feel like I didn't really have time to think. By the time that I
Hmm.
realized what was going on, it wasn't like, why is this happening? It was more like, what can I do to make this not happen? So essentially, I'd like to give another huge shout out to, I don't know if it was red or green. Nobody knows because this story is not unique to me. But as I was putting Darling the Beagle into the rescue van, my shoes started slipping and I lost my balance and I fell like on top of the cage. So I screamed back for somebody to help me to keep me up. There was a hand that went right on my tush and kept me there so I can get him in. And then I still couldn't do it because this poor beagle who spent his entire life in a cage all of a sudden is going back into a cage after who knows what happened. And I didn't literally have the strength to do it. So I went back and I said, I need help. He's not in all the way. Like somebody else was able to do it. However, that didn't mean that the job was done. The van was still there. And I literally saw the van or the truck hit the van, but I didn't realize what I saw until I started to think about it. And we let that van go. There was another van that was half in a ditch, and instead of freaking out, like, what are we gonna do? I was like, no, you gotta back up, put your tires this way, go this way. And then that van went as all of the people holding the flowers are around the truck so he doesn't go anywhere. He would hit the people instead of the rescue van. It was literally like something out of a movie. There was like no plan for what could have happened there, but everybody did so well at just being present, practicing nonviolence, and staying calm, cool, and collected, remembering the bigger picture. And when all of that is happening, I feel like you don't have any time to think about any of the negative. It's just go. And what do we have to do to save these dogs? We have some of these dogs out. We need to make sure that they go to safety and they don't have to go back to testing.
Wow. Wow. So, yeah, what's it been like, coming out of this experience, which was a little less than a week ago as of the time that we're recording it, right? Last Sunday, is that right?
Yes, so about 6, 7 days ago, I didn't get home until later Tuesday. I started back at work on Thursday and I spent most of Wednesday just kind of figuring out what life is going to be like and processing what it is that I had experienced. And it still feels surreal. I know that it's not over because I have a court date later on. And honestly, they're already organizing the next mission. So April 12, 2025, 26. Oh my goodness, April 12, 2026, next month, in just a couple of weeks, there's going to be another mission. So I feel like I can't really stop the processing that's going on, but a lot of people in my professional life know where I stand on animals. And after this, I feel like I've been called a vigilante so they can see that it comes from a place of love. And I feel like since this is dogs and everybody can get in on the dogs, it gives me a little more humanity that they see, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like, I'm not just the crazy vegan or the one that will speak nonsense. Like, I'm speaking for a quote unquote pet or a companion animal,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that everyone can relate to. So I feel like the connections from the people that I've already been connected with have somehow strengthened. And for that, I'm really grateful.
Very interesting. So you felt some support, some sympathy for the cause from your work colleagues.
Yes, more than I ever have before. Definitely more
Amazing.
than saying, hey, you can anti age and get off all your medicine just by
Yeah.
eating this plant instead of whatever.
Right. Right. Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, congratulations on carrying through with that mission, on showing up for yourself and for those animals, and for continuing to show up. And thank you so much for sharing the story with a lot of our viewers and listeners who probably have never even considered participating in an open rescue like this, and just challenging us all to take our activism, take our commitment to the vegan cause to that next level. Like you said, we're not going to force people into trying to take better care of themselves. It wouldn't work even if we tried to, but it does make sense to use the power that we have to get them off the animals, the other animals. Thank you, Amanda. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And final question, which I like to ask all my guests: is there a particular word that for you sums up what being vegan is all about?
Ethical. I feel like everything comes back to ethics and just the internal knowing what is supposed to be compared to what's unaligned. If you don't want to use right and wrong, like, I just have an innate sense of understanding that we're not here to exploit others, especially animals. And it all comes back to ethics. My voice is so strong and so loud because I know at the end of the day I'm divinely supported, and that's the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me. Yep. All right. Well, thank you again. We close every episode of the Vegan Posse by taking 30 seconds of silence for all the suffering animals, human and non-human, who desire, as we all do, safety, happiness, and the freedom to live out their lives without interference. So, Amanda, I invite you to join me in 30 seconds of silence for the animals, and especially those beagles at this moment. And we'll conclude with the sound of the bell. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Posse. See you next time. Until then, stay strong and stay true.